America's most legendary special operators, men who survived Hell Week, who have deployed to every war zone on Earth, quietly admit that joint exercises with Israel's Shayatet-13 are the assignments they dread most. Not because the Israelis are better equipped or better funded, but because Shayatet-13 operators don't distinguish between training and combat. Every drill mirrors a mission they ran last month. Every scenario is ripped from an operation they'll execute next week. And every round fired carries the weight of a nation that has fought 7 wars in 75 years. When SEALs arrive expecting an exercise, they discover something far more uncomfortable, a unit that treats peacetime as a myth. Before the first shot is fired, the difference is already in the air, palpable, electric, and impossible to ignore. For Navy SEALs, the world's most rigorously selected operators, training has always been brutal. But it's also been bounded by rules, safety nets, and the unspoken comfort that this is, in the end, a rehearsal. That protective bubble doesn't survive the first hour with Shayatet-13. The moment the joint exercise begins, the line between simulation and survival blurs. There's no blank fire mentality here. Every scenario is a direct copy of an operation just run in Nablus or Gaza. Every building breach or vessel boarding drilled as though a hostage's life actually hangs in the balance. The Israelis don't just brief the mission, they relive it. Sweat still fresh on their uniforms from the last real raid. It's not the physical grind that gets to the SEALs. They're used to exhaustion, to sand in their teeth and water in their lungs. But when Shayatet-13 instructors order live rounds into the chamber and move with the same urgency as a midnight call-up, the SEALs' bodies betray them. Heart rate monitors spike well past the numbers seen in Bud S. Hell Week. Hands shake, not from fatigue, but from the sudden realization that the safety net is gone. Cortisol levels, measured by medics in rare research partnerships, show a pattern. A surge identical to what's seen in actual combat, not controlled drills. The body can't tell the difference because here there isn't one. One SEAL, a veteran of Afghanistan and Somalia, describes the sensation as a kind of psychological vertigo. He's done live fire before, but never with instructors who treat every mistake as if it could cost a teammate's life. The Israelis don't flinch at broken ribs in Krav Maga sparring, or at the sound of live ammunition cracking overhead. They've spent the last 4 years running over 1,200 raids in the West Bank alone. Training is just the next operation, and the next operation is already being planned. The American operators used to a certain structure, even in chaos, find themselves destabilized. There's no rehearsal, no dry run, no let's walk it through. Instead, there's a briefing ripped straight from last week's mission folder and a warning. Treat this as real, because it is. The psychological shock is immediate. For some, adrenaline surges into hyperfocus. For others, the mind rebels, searching for the old boundaries that no longer exist. This is the moment the dread sets in, not because the Israelis are stronger or better armed, but because Shayatet-13 refuses to let anyone, friend or foe, forget that their country's survival depends on never making the distinction between training and war. The physiological evidence is clear. Stress hormones flooding the bloodstream, heart rates pounding, every nerve on edge. For the SEALs, it's a cold, undeniable message. The protective bubble is gone. In its place stands a new reality, one where every action, every breath, carries the weight of a nation that has never known peacetime as anything but a temporary illusion. Shayatet-13 emerged in 1949, forged in a country where the boundary between war and peace was always uncertain. From the start, the unit was built for a world where waiting could be fatal. The training pipeline, known as the Maslul, stretches for nearly 20 months, a relentless test that shapes not just skills, but the very instincts of those who attempt it. Out of every 100 who enter, only about 5 reach the end. The rest are cut, not just by exhaustion or injury, but by a standard that demands total commitment. The Maslul is more than drills or obstacle courses. Trainees are yanked from their routines and thrown into live operations, sometimes in Gaza, sometimes on the Lebanese border, sometimes far out at sea. There are no rehearsals. The first time a candidate breaches a door, the threat is real. Mistakes carry consequences measured in lives, not training scores. A former commander recalls watching a trainee freeze during a live hostage rescue. There was no pause, no safety net. The team pressed on, the mission succeeded, but by morning the candidate was gone. In Shayatet 13, hesitation is disqualifying. The pipeline is a filter for psychological resilience, blending phases like infantry, diving, close quarters battle, and maritime sabotage with the tempo of real missions. During the surge of raids in the West Bank from 2020 to 2024, Shayatet operators took part in over 1,200 missions, often with trainees in the stack. The message is clear. Every member must be ready now, not after graduation. This approach stands in stark contrast to the American model. SEAL Teams 2, 4, and 18, frequent partners in joint exercises like Noble Dina, operate within a system of structured progression, BUDS, SQT, platoon integration, years of training before deployment. In the US, the pipeline is closed, designed to keep real casualties at bay until the final gate. For a Shayatet, the gates are everywhere, and they open without warning. The difference is most visible during joint drills. Noble Dina, a recurring Mediterranean exercise, has grown in complexity since 9/11. SEALs and Shayatet commandos parachute into open sea, board ships, and clear tunnels, sometimes with Israeli instructors swapping blanks for live rounds, or ordering Krav Maga sparring that leaves bruises and broken ribs. The Israeli doctrine of overwhelming force and speed clashes with the American preference for methodical clearing. Even the chain of command feels foreign. Shayatet's flat hierarchy means candidates debate tactics openly and challenge orders when needed. For SEALs, used to strict protocol, the effect is jarring. Beneath the drills and numbers lies a philosophy shaped by a country that treats peacetime as an illusion. In Shayatet 13, the line between training and war is erased. Every survivor of the Maslul carries that lesson into every operation. Numbers alone can't capture what it feels like to train with Shayatet 13, but they do reveal the scale of the pressure. Between 2020 and 2024, Israeli special operators conducted over 1,200 raids in the West Bank, an operational tempo unmatched in the Western world. On any given night, teams move through dense city blocks, breach doors, and extract targets, then return to base with just enough time to debrief before planning the next incursion. The line between training and real-world action is so thin it's nearly invisible. Every drill is a rehearsal for a mission that might be launched within hours. Every operator knows that their next call-up could be the difference between life and death for civilians caught in the crossfire. Shayatet 13's legacy is built on this constant state of readiness. Since its founding in 1949, the unit has taken part in more than 30 named operations, each one a lesson in improvisation, risk, and the refusal to accept defeat. The 1973 Spring of Youth raid in Beirut stands as a defining example. Shayatet commandos, disguised as civilians, infiltrated deep into enemy territory to eliminate high-ranking PLO leaders. The mission required weeks of planning, but the execution was a blur of movement, landings by sea, rapid assaults, and exfiltration under fire. The operation was a success, but it came at a cost. Several commandos wounded, and the ever-present reminder that every mission is a gamble with no guarantees. Maritime interdictions have become a specialty. In the Red Sea, Shayatet 13 teams have boarded vessels suspected of smuggling weapons to hostile groups, sometimes under the cover of darkness, sometimes in broad daylight with international observers tracking every move. These aren't theoretical exercises. Each boarding carries the risk of ambush, the possibility of hidden explosives, or the sudden eruption of close-quarters combat. The operators train for these moments by replaying real scenarios from recent raids, no detail too small, no variable ignored. The numbers tell their own story. Over 30 major operations since 1960, countless smaller missions that never make headlines, and a training pipeline that pulls candidates into live missions before they've even earned their place. For Shayatet 13, operational readiness isn't a slogan, it's a daily reality. Every chart, every mission log, every after-action report points to the same conclusion. The unit is always in motion, always preparing for the next fight, and always treating rehearsal as indistinguishable from war. Night after night, the lights never truly go out in the Shayatet 13 compound. The resources poured into Israel's special operations units are visible in every corner. Infrared feeds flicker in the command center, racks of tunnel breach kits stand ready, and the hum of encrypted radios never fades. For a country with a population smaller than New York City, the allocation is staggering. Nearly 15% of Israel's entire defense budget is funneled into special operations, compared to roughly 3% in the United States. The numbers aren't just accounting, they're a declaration. In Israel, survival isn't an abstract goal. It's a daily calculation, measured in dollars, equipment, and the willingness to risk everything on the next mission. The stakes are not just financial. In Shayatet 13, the risk calculus is brutally simple. Broken bones and Krav Maga sparring are shrugged off as part of the process. Casualties, even in training, are accepted as the price of readiness. The Israeli commandos operate with the understanding that every exercise could turn live in an instant. Trainees are sometimes pulled from the classroom and dropped onto a helicopter for a real-world raid. No warning, no rehearsal, just orders and a target. The pipeline doesn't pause for safety reviews or paperwork. The distinction between training accident and combat wound blurs because the consequences are the same. This relentless prioritization is not lost on the Americans. Navy SEALs arrive with gear that reflects the world's largest defense budget, but they find themselves borrowing Israeli tunnel kits, designed in the shadow of Gaza's labyrinths, or watching as Shayatet instructors improvise breaching charges from materials scavenged in the field. The exchange is not one way. Over the years, SEALs have brought night vision optics and advanced ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, systems to the partnership, technologies that Israeli teams now wield with precision. The flow of knowledge runs both directions. Israeli tunnel-clearing tactics have made their way into SEAL handbooks, while American digital targeting overlays appear in Shayatet operations. Every joint exercise becomes a laboratory. During a Noble Dina drill, a SEAL operator studies the Israeli approach to urban tunnels. No hesitation, no waiting for perfect intelligence, just speed and violence of action. In the next phase, Israeli commandos adapt their assault timing using American ISR feeds, layering real-time drone imagery over their own intuition. The result is not just a fusion of tools, but a collision of philosophies, where the United States system builds redundancy and layers of oversight. The Israeli model bets everything on initiative and trust, backed by the cold math of a country that cannot afford to lose. The numbers on a budget sheet tell only part of the story. The real investment is measured in lives, in the willingness to accept risk, and in the constant, uneasy exchange of tactics and technology. For the SEALs, the lesson is inescapable. Intensity is not just a product of training, but of a national calculus that values survival above all else. Orders cut through the room, but the language is all wrong for a Navy SEAL. There are no sirs, no last names, no barked titles. Instead, a Shayatet 13 commander, barely distinguishable from the youngest trainee, calls out, "Yoni, you take left. Amir, you're on point." For SEALs, this is cognitive whiplash. The American chain of command is a ladder. Every rung is clear, every step rehearsed. In Shayatet 13, the chain is more like a circle, flat, direct, and always in motion. The difference becomes visceral at the breach. In a SEAL stack, each man waits for his signal, moving in tight sequence, every corner methodically cleared. The Israelis don't wait. They flood the room in a single violent wave. No pause, no hesitation, no choreography beyond pure instinct. One SEAL, years into his career, describes the sensation. It's like being thrown into a current. You're not leading, you're not following, you're just trying not to drown. The doctrine behind this chaos is deliberate. Shayatet 13 was built in a country where hesitation can mean annihilation. Flat hierarchy isn't a quirk, it's survival. Any operator, even the most junior, is expected to challenge a plan if he sees a better way. The first-name culture isn't about informality, it's about speed. In the middle of a breach, there's no time to sort out who outranks whom. The only thing that matters is the mission, and the mission is always real. During Noble Dina, the joint Mediterranean exercise, SEALs find themselves swept up in this current. A commander in his 30s, with the scars of Gaza still fresh, leads from the front. his voice indistinguishable from the rest. In one drill, a SEAL hesitates at the door, waiting for the go-ahead. The Israeli next to him doesn't. He crashes through, followed instantly by the rest of his team. The room is cleared in seconds, but the American is left standing outside, protocol suddenly meaningless. What looks like chaos to outsiders is, for Shayatet 13, the only way to survive. Every breach is a gamble, every room a potential ambush. The flat structure means decisions are made at the speed of adrenaline, not bureaucracy. SEALs, trained to trust the system, find themselves forced to trust only the man at their shoulder, regardless of rank, age, or years of service. In that moment, the boundaries that once defined safety, order, and control dissolve. What remains is the raw, unnerving reality that in this partnership, survival depends on letting go of everything you thought you knew about command. Krav Maga sparring in Shayatet 13 is a collision, not a demonstration. The expectation isn't just bruises, it's blood, broken bones, and a tolerance for pain that borders on ritual. Instructors don't treat injuries as setbacks. They're proof the training is real. During joint drills, SEALs enter a world where cracked ribs and broken noses are routine, and a medic is just another operator, taping up a dislocated shoulder before sending the trainee back in. Pain isn't a warning, it's background noise. The culture is built on enduring injury, not avoiding it. Hesitation after a hard hit draws attention. Asking for a pause means you're quietly dropped from the next rotation. In the US, even elite units have red lines. A serious injury means everything stops. Paperwork, reviews, a pause to assess. SEALs are trained to push limits, but always with someone tracking the margins. In Israel, the only metric is readiness. During Noble Dina, SEALs and Shayatet Commandos trade blows in a warehouse outside Haifa. An American takes an elbow to the jaw, staggers. The Israeli instructor checks he's conscious, then signals for the drill to continue. No reset, no apology. The message is simple. The enemy won't wait for you to recover. Medical protocols mirror this. Shayatet. 13 operators are expected to self-treat, tape up fingers, reset a nose, and keep moving. Only the most severe injuries halt the exercise, and even then, the drill resumes once the casualty is evacuated. SEALs, used to medics enforcing limits, have to adapt or risk being sidelined. One operator called it training with the brakes cut. This is the final shock. In Shayatet 13, the body is expendable. There's no comfort in safety. Every bruise and scar is a reminder that the line between practice and survival is gone. Pain isn't a byproduct, it's a requirement. Here, training is war, and war never ends. Right now, Israel's commandos still train as if every hour could turn into war, because it often does. That relentless mindset, forged in over 1,200 real raids since 2020, strips away the protective bubble that even SEALs rely on. As global threats multiply and the line between rehearsal and reality dissolves, this is the future of elite warfare. The only question: who adapts and who breaks first?